Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Well, fresh off the conclusion of our last video where we found out the motorhome 440 from our 68 Satellite, the Ratty Satty, is in really good shape. So we've got a ton of parts on order for that thing. We've got new heads, a new cam setup, and yes, I did hear all of you, we are doing high compression pistons in the engine. I actually did a calculator on it, and I'll share it with you guys when we go to rebuild that engine, but it's actually significantly worse than what it came rated from the factory. So it would have been all for naught, and I think we would have still ended up with a very low compression engine that would have certainly underperformed at the event in Las Vegas. The muscle cars at the strip show is coming up, and that's what we're kind of getting everything ready for. We have to have this car ready in about the next 80 days or so roughly to autocross and also drag race. So we're getting a ton of engine upgrades, we're getting a bunch of suspension and brake upgrades that'll be coming up here in a couple weeks. But today I figured, since we're waiting on a lot of parts for the engine, and also because I'm having spark and welding withdrawals, I figured now would be a great time to address the metal work that we need to do on the car. And it's fairly insignificant compared to some of the other builds that we've done. But you know, we've got some holes here. The floor pan is actually in exceptional shape overall. I'm kind of shocked to see how good that is. I'm not used to working with pans that are starting off this nice, but you guys can see we got a couple pinholes down there. We got another one over there by the gas pedal. I believe the passenger side's actually in really good shape, so that shouldn't be too bad. Another thing we're gonna do that drives me absolutely crazy is that a car this old, you know, that sat for a long time, the bushings in the door hinges are absolutely shot, and this thing drops down, you know, a good inch or so when you open up the door. It drives me absolutely crazy, and every time I go to shut it, I actually have to lift it to get it to shut right. So we're gonna fix that, and I'm gonna show you guys how to do that in about 10 minutes or less, and I promise you it will take you more time to get the door off than it will to rebuild the hinges. So a couple little tricks that I've learned that I want to pass along to you guys. We're then going to move back here to the back window. We've got to get this glass out. Now I'm batting 1,000 when it comes to shattering back windows every single time I take them out. So I got this fancy dancy Harbor Freight removal kit here. We're gonna give it a go. I really hope I don't destroy the glass taking it out. I'm gonna try my best to take my time. I'm actually more concerned about getting the trim off because it is like glued on. I can see all the sealant that somebody tried to fill this gap with, which is what I believe kind of resulted in the damage to the trunk pan. But I don't know if they use Flex Seal on this thing. I don't know if it's bubble gum. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's bad and we need to get it out of there. And we're likely going to have to do some pretty significant channel work here, especially on the deck filler, but I don't know what the rest of this looks like here. We could end up having to do a full window channel replacement, but we'll know more once we get this glass out in one piece or 1,000 pieces. And then we get to move on to the top. So this is kind of the worst of the rust, but I really don't think this is even that bad either. So we've got some new patch panel pieces there that, as you're looking at them, probably look just as bad as this. They've definitely sat outside and they saw some moisture, saw quite a bit of rain, but we'll take a wire wheel to them, we'll clean them up. But yeah, we're not going to be doing a complete AMD trunk pan like we normally would. I don't want to drill out everything and lift up the tail panel and, you know, try to put a one-piece pan in here. It's a whole lot of work, and I don't want to destroy the exterior of the car doing so, because that could really snowball and eat up a ton of our time and our budget. So instead, we're going to go ahead and we're going to patch this trunk pan. So we're going to cut out a huge section out here in the middle, pretty much right up into the frame rail on both sides. Cut this out. We're going to drop in our two-piece pan. We'll fit check it a bunch of times, and we will do the famous cut and butt, and we will weld that thing in, and you will not be able to tell that it was done, I assure you. And last but not least, what I'm probably most excited about is this 8-point roll cage from our friends over at S&W Performance. So they sent us this kit. It's an 8-point roll bar that is NHRA, IHRA certified for 10 seconds. Now, I'm not gonna fool you guys or fool myself into thinking I'm actually gonna run 10s at Matt's in Vegas, but if we ever get there, we'll be safe, we'll be certified, we'll have everything that we need to get there. But really nice kit. There's been quite a few installs on YouTube already about a similar kit for different makes and models of cars. I have not seen one, a video yet for these B-bodies, but everything is already cut and notched. It's all cut to length. We got the base plates in that box there, and yeah, Shouldn't be too much to it. I've never personally installed a roll cage before, but done my fair share of welding, and yeah, I don't expect too much of an issue. But regardless, I'm gonna share with you guys kind of step by step, and yeah, we got a lot of work to do, guys, and I'm trying to get this done in one episode for you and not drag it out over the next 10 episodes of metalwork. So enough talking, let's get to work. Alrighty guys, we got our hinges rebuilt and also got our floor patches knocked out here. And yeah, let's start off with the hinges. Now, I'm telling you guys, that air chisel, I think I got mine at Home Depot for maybe like 80 bucks, 100 bucks, something like that. I use that so much, whether it's, I mean, you could cut a damn car in half with it if you wanted to. But you know, the first time I ever went to go rebuild hinges, I like took them completely out, messed with the vise, and it was just a giant pain in the ass. And I watched a video. I don't know if you guys ever watched DIY Auto School or My Friend Pete, but he did this on a Mustang. And yeah, super simple to do. Just hit it with the air chisel on the bottom. You'll eventually get this pin to pop up. You can either pry it with a screwdriver or you can, you know, drive it through with a punch, but it's a really simple way to do it. Now, I want to say on this side, the pin was already, I'm sure you guys probably picked that up, but the pin was sticking up probably a good 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch out of the hinge, which would probably explain why that the door opened and closed like a piece of crap. But the bottom was super tight. This side went in really tight. And I want to say it was the other side where one of the hats on the bushings was actually broken off. And so, yeah, they needed to be done. And again, guys, I think they're $7 or so right now on Amazon, and maybe 10 minutes per side. It's really, really simple to do. So let's take a quick look at the floor patches on the other side. These turned out really good. And I've got these in the zero rust right now. I know it's kind of hard to see inside of there, but yeah, I was able to blend those out. You really can't even tell that we did patches there. So that's all really good news and another good check off the list. And now it's time to knock out this trunk pan. So I've already been a little bit busy here, did a few things. I've got the trunk pan fit up the way that I want it. So you guys remember, they did not look anything like this. I first started off by wire wheeling everything, cleaned it all up, and it actually came out pretty damn good. But then I went ahead, and because these pans actually kind of went up maybe about like that, and it included all the way down to the side, I really don't want to cut any more out of this floor than what I need to. Now, what this pan does not cover is that there's, looks like 2 spots right there, and then we've got one over here in the corner that we'll have to patch. But again, those really aren't too big of a deal, and it's going to save me a lot of time with cutting and welding. So I've got them fit up. They fit really, really good actually. They actually fit straight into the beads of the original floor, as you can see right there. And overall, I'm really happy. Pushed them out as far as I could to kind of line up against the frame rails. And the way that I cut these, it doesn't really go through any beads or anything like that. It actually goes on some straight portions. So should make it really, really easy to weld in. Now, what I'm gonna do from here too, oh, one more thing. This pan, you can see right here, it's actually flanged, and it's supposed to be lap welded. Now, not a big lap welding guy. I feel like people that lap weld are people that cannot butt weld. So we're gonna fix that. I already screwed it together in a few different places here. We'll pull it back out of the car. We'll actually just run the grinding wheel straight down. This is called the cut and butt method, but we'll run the grinding wheel straight down the edge of the top piece. We will put a couple tacks in it, and then we'll final weld it once we get it into the car. But you know, when you lap weld stuff like that, guys, you're just inviting rust issues down the road, especially with things kind of getting up inside of that lap area there. It's just not a very good method. But the plan is to get it all cut out, weld it in, and make it look like nothing was ever done. So let's get to it. Alrighty guys, so finally got the trunk pan all wrapped up, and my goodness, what a freaking job. I think it actually took longer than what it would have taken to actually do the entire trunk pan, and probably drops included. So not to mention my big ass has to get into the trunk, and I'm a big guy, and it's not the easiest thing to lay in there and to weld around this entire thing. And I mean, I had to stitch together the entire perimeter of that. Now this still needs to be sanded and blended and all that stuff and metal finished. But yeah, went in really nice, guys. It's absolutely solid as a rock, and we should not have any issues at all with the areas that were replaced. I did hop ahead a little bit. I did some patches here, and then also up there. Did not feel it worthy to cut out that entire section and do all that. So I was able to actually use the remnants that were left over from these halves of the trunk pan floor to line up the beads and actually get that lined up, and it turned out really, really good. Once those are sanded and everything else, you really won't be able to tell where those sections are at. And I'm still going to body work this after the cage goes in. So just want it super, super clean. Nobody will ever see it. No one will ever appreciate it except for me. But I know when I open up the trunk pan, it'll look real, or open up the trunk, excuse me, the trunk pan will look very, very good. So it's now time, guys. It's New Year's Day, unfortunately, and I can't go get sanding discs to finish out that job. So we're going to hop on to something else, and that is this rear window. Now, remembering back to the CUDA build, I did shatter that rear window, taking it out, and yeah, hoping that doesn't happen. Now, when I was laying inside of the trunk, I was taking a break and kind of, you know, just being in an awkward position like that, you kind of have to like lay your head down once in a while just because you have the mask on, and then you lean back up and do some welding. But on a few of my breaks, I was glancing at daylight all the way down this entire bottom trim piece here, and I did take a blade really fast and I popped this bottom piece off because none of the trim is held on here by clips, at least the bottom section. It's held on here by sealant, Flex Seal, glue, something like that. Yeah, it's not, yeah, you guys can see that. It was basically glued to the bottom of that, and you can see how freaking rotted out that entire thing is. So I really, really hope that the sides and the top are not that bad. If so, we're going to be spending a few days building some window channels here. But I'm optimistic that the sides are not that bad, and the top, hopefully, is not that bad either. But yeah, I've got a couple fancy tools here to get this window out if need be. I mean, I plan on just taking razor blades and kind of cutting all the way around the trim. I've got a couple trim removal tools here to help us with that, as well as a windshield removal kit. So might have to call in some reinforcements to help me saw out this window seal if there's anything left of it. Looking at the bottom here, there is no window seal anywhere whatsoever. So you can definitely see some of the glue right there. But yeah, just gonna be very slow, methodical, take my time, and hopefully get this thing out in one piece. So let's get to it. Alrighty guys, so T-Bone and I got the back window out of the car in one piece, mind you. It was not in 1,000 pieces. And when I took it out of the car, I actually immediately took it upstairs and put it there because I would absolutely be tripping over that in the next 10 to 15 minutes and it would be in 1,000 pieces. So it's gonna stay up there where it's safe until this entire situation here is addressed. Which, after we took the glass out, I ran a wire wheel around the window channel. I removed a good portion of the window channel with the wire wheel, and we got some major issues going on down here on this Dutchman panel. So pretty much corner to corner, the entire thing needs to be replaced. If you look there, right there on the sail panel, you know, we've got about 8 to 10 inches or so of that that's completely eaten away. We've got some sections across the top here that are gonna need to be cut out. A lot of little pinholes, things like that. And yeah, a lot of work here, you guys. And there's a couple different ways of doing this. Number one, you guys have saw us on the GTO, on the CUDA, on the Charger, on the Roadrunner, right? We tend to like just take flat 18 gauge sheet metal, throw it through the brake, and then I actually just use a strinker stretcher tool and you know, bend it to shape and cut it out, weld it up, and we can do that way. And that's how we would be doing it had I not hung on to some very key pieces of sheet metal. Now, I work on a lot of Mopars, as you guys know, and I keep everything. I keep all my sheet metal, and I've got quite the stash, and voila. This is the ultimate cheat code for this job specifically. So I mentioned the entire bottom and then up onto the quarters needs to be replaced. Well, I just so happen to have some top sections of some section quarter panels, as well as damn near an entire Dutchman panel here that we are going to cut what we need and weld it onto the car. So you can see here, this being the passenger side quarter panel, the upper portion of the quarter there, we're going to cut that out, and then we can essentially lay it right over the top of the other side, mark it, cut it, weld it. Do that on both sides. Here on the Dutchman panel, I've already marked this for about 2 inches. Now I may leave it there and actually take a little bit more off the car just to make sure we get well into good metal. And what's kind of crazy about this is that it only affected, or really affected, I guess, the Dutchman panel. This piece down here, this lower window channel, is actually in amazing shape all the way across the entire thing. There's no holes through that or anything like that. I think if I just take a grinding disc to that and clean all that up, I think we're going to open up some fresh sheet metal there, and we should not have any issue whatsoever plug welding that window channel over the top of that. You know, but looking at this piece here, you know, it gets a little sketch up in here. And so what I'd like to do is take this back a ways. If we do decide to go the full 2 inches, we'll kind of look at it. Once we get that cut out, we can lay it right over the top of here and you know, kind of see where it puts us, and we can mark it, cut it. The only crappy thing, some of you guys hate it, I love the patina on this car. So I don't want to cut away any more than I have to, but what I plan on doing is actually getting inside of the trunk again, looking up in here and kind of seeing where the bad metal starts and the good metal stops, and we'll cut it there. And yeah, shouldn't be too bad of a job, especially when you have something like this. This makes it a whole lot faster, a whole lot easier to do. And yeah, don't throw away your scraps. So let's go ahead, let's get these pieces cut out here, lay them up on the car, and do some marking, some cutting, and some welding. So we've got our bottom window channel all fit up here, and it looks really nice. I went ahead and stripped off all of the EDP coating just with some flap discs, and so that's why it looks so pretty, but the fitment's excellent. Had to do a little bit of trimming here just where the panels meet, but nothing super significant. So once I had the good fitment, went ahead, cleat coated all into place, and now we can actually take our reciprocating saw, carve right along the edge of this, so that way this panel drops straight into our existing deck filler piece here. We'll have to go back, pop this back off. We're gonna punch out a bunch of holes along the edge of that, and we'll also be able to clean up that bottom window channel there with that big chunk removed out of there. So we can get that all in weld through primer, get that piece welded in, get these corners welded in, and then move on to the rest of the window opening. So doing it this way definitely saves a whole lot of time, and the fitment is just absolutely immaculate. I'm really, really happy that I hung on to those pieces. So, but from here, guys, you know, I've made probably about a half dozen or so videos on doing window channels, so I probably won't explain a whole lot as I do it. So if you're interested to kind of see how, you know, all of these parts right here get rebuilt, definitely check out those other videos that we did on the Charger, on the GTO, and also the CUDA. So, but I'm really anxious to get this knocked out because I am so excited to move on to this dang roll cage. So let's get it done. Alrighty, so skipping ahead once again, our rear window channel is just about wrapped up. It is in body work right now, and we're kind of at a standstill with that just based off of not having sanding discs. As stupid as that sounds, they won't be here for a day or two, so our progress is kind of halted on that, but it's very close to being wrapped up. Now, I know I did not record much of any of the rear window channels. If you guys want to see that, it's in very painful detail on the CUDA, on the Charger, on basically every build that we've done here. The GTO, we had to do front and rear channels on that as well. But yeah, I had to replace from basically 12 o'clock all the way to about 9 o'clock, and it's all brand new. It's all, you know, bent, shrunk, stretch, you name it, to get to fit the way that it does now, and it turned out really, really good. Now what I like to do after that, I grind all that down, grind my welds down. I like to use the Fiberall fiberglass reinforced body filler to, kind of waterproof everything, to make it all super smooth, and it'll really, really make those window channels look like new again. So you can see we got the bottom here all in the Fiberall. It's all sanded down. We will throw a quick coat of glaze across the bottom of that just to make sure it all transitions really well there across the bottom. But essentially, those 2-inch roll-lock discs, the Scotch-Brites, you can just take those around the inside of the window channel, clean all that up, and it'll pretty much leave you damn near a paint-ready finish with that. So, and the stuff sands super easy. It's great to work with. So yeah, we'll get that done on the rear window here, and then I also took some time and ground down all the welds here on our trunk pan, as well as the transitions into the old side of the pan. But turned out really good. And this is now ready also for Fiberall. And I'm not coating the entire panel in that stuff. It's only going over welds. That's it. And yeah, again, with the intention there that it will not look like that trunk pan was ever swapped out of this car once we're done. But before we do all that, we get to weld in a roll cage. I'm so excited. So excited, in fact, that I actually ripped open the package, did not have gloves on, and sliced the shit out of my finger doing so. So yeah, make sure you wear cut resistant gloves when you're doing this. But at first glance, you guys, this cage is super, super nice. And this is the S&W kit meant for the 68 to 70 Plymouth B bodies, and everything is cut, it's notched. It is basically ready to weld in. And I will just tell you, by mocking things up here and looking at this, I could never in a million years get fit up like that. It is all very tight, very precise, and absolutely on the money. I mean, this bar right here, which is where the harnesses are going to go, that thing is like perfectly in place on there. And yeah, these bars here, they mount to the inside of the tunnel. You can see one's a little bit longer than the other, I presume, because if you guys remember back, the floor pan on this, that tunnel is actually kicked. It's a little bit closer to the passenger side, so maybe you need a longer bar there. But either way, I'm assuming those may be the only two that we have to cut, because those are the only two straight bars pretty much on this entire kit. But the rest of this here, you guys can see we got our door bars here. We've also got the bars that mount from the very top of the hoop down through the package tray and to the top of the rear frame rails, and those are mounted to steel plates. This kit came with 8/8" steel plates, and yeah, pretty beefy setup here, guys. Now, I took a couple quick measurements. The fitment is very, very tight. I will tell you that. I mean, first and foremost, we got to get this headliner out of here. Not only is it a fire hazard, but it's never going to stay here with this setup. But yeah, once we get that out, we can get that hoop fit up in here. But top to bottom, this is going to have to mount to the rear footwell panel here. And I've gone ahead, just kind of laid these plates in place. But my thought process here, and again, I'm not a cage expert by any means, but just kind of planning ahead, planning 2, 3, 4, 10 steps ahead. The only welding that concerns me, that I'll have access issues with, is that top bar to those bars that go to the top of the roof frame rails. And it's just because the roof clearance around the top of that, you won't be able to weld all the way around. So my thought there is we'll get the hoop fit in here where it needs to be, get that exactly where we want it, and then we will start fitting those top bars through the package tray to the top of the rear frame rails. And once I'm happy with all of that, exactly where it's fitting, we will tack the top bars to the main hoop. And then I've also got a 3-inch hole saw that we will cut a hole out in the floor here. We will drop the cage through those holes and have access all the way around those top pipes. And then we can then bring it back up, put it back on the plates, weld it in there, weld it in back there, weld our circles that we cut out back in. And yeah, from there we have really good access everywhere else. The door bar is going to mount, say, here-ish. It's going to go down to the front here, down there, same with the other side. And then we've also got those bars that come, and those mount to the plates that will be on the tunnel. So sounds pretty easy. I hope it's pretty easy. I think I've got it figured out in my head, but nonetheless, a lot of welding. And yeah, it's really going to transform this car. It's going to definitely beef it up and add a whole lot of strength into it, a lot more of a safety factor into it if, you know, worst case scenario happens. But it's also going to make this car look like a race car, which is pretty exciting to me too. So let's get this headliner torn out, let's get this hoop in there, and let's kind of see how everything's fitting. All right, so we've got a roll bar all fit up here, and overall the fitment's really, really good. It's actually very, very tight in the car. I actually had to shave a little bit off both legs to even get it to stand up straight because it intersects or really runs directly into the roof skin there, and don't want to push too hard. I would really like to not have little bumps on the top of my roof. But everything is lining up. It's very, very level here. And that crossbar, you can see just the roll bar itself, and of course the car being level as well. So I'm very, very happy with that fitment there. So essentially I'm ready to burn that in. Now the only issue I got down here is that I am not a fan of that fitment of the leg on this little 6x6 bracket here. So what I'm going to end up doing instead, because the requirements do say that with this being a unibody car, I do have to have 6x6 plates welded to the car. I took a little piece of cardboard here, cut a 2" by 2" corner out of that, and I'm going to throw it in the hammer and the vise, and we're going to box that in. And it's actually the perfect height, so that way I don't have to trim any off on the top of that. It will weld really nicely to the vertical piece on a roof foot weld pan, as well as the inner rocker and also the floor. And another issue I've got right here is that it actually runs directly over one of these drain holes here on the floor. But with me taking that corner out and bending this up, it actually misses both of these and welds in right between those. So shouldn't have any issues. So I'm used to working with a lot thinner metal, stuff that's a whole lot easier to move. I don't work with 1/8" plate very often, so we'll have to get the BFH out and bend this thing into shape. Alright, you guys, made quite a bit of progress here. We've got our plates welded in the bottom. We've got our posts here all lined up and exactly where they need to be. They're level. And something else that actually really helped out too, this piece that was supporting the roof that I a minute ago probably said that I was not going to cut out, I absolutely had to. For a few reasons. Number one, I could not get this bar to stand exactly vertical, which as you can see now, it's exactly vertical. And also was trying to think ahead of if I needed to drill holes out in the floor and push this bar forward, I could not actually push this bar with those back pieces connected on there. I could not lean it forward because of that roof support. So, but getting that out of the way allowed me to stand the bar vertical. It also allowed me to tack in these bars here, and some really good news, I actually have access, or enough access, to do some good welds all the way up and over the top without having to drill holes in the floor and drop it down. So I'm really happy about that. Definitely saves quite a bit of work. So I went around, double, triple checked everything. We threw a level on every single part of this cage. You can see there, we're nice and even there. Just making sure that it all lines up exactly where it needs to be. Everything is perfectly straight before we start making this permanent. We got one more over here, I'll show you. And again, if it's off a little bit, all I'm doing, taking a little rubber mallet action, popping it where it needs to be, and yeah, just squaring it all up. So yeah, we will have to do some package tray repairs here. I cut kind of a bigger section out than really what I needed to, but what we'll do is that we'll go back and actually take these pieces here, we'll notch out where the tubes are, we'll weld them back in, grind those flush, and basically make it look like those tubes are just going right through that package tray. So, but yeah, I'm gonna grab a helmet and gloves, and let's at least weld this portion in permanent before we start moving on to the crossbars, and yeah, one step closer to getting this job done. Alrighty guys, well after what feels like an eternity, I'm happy to say that all of the metal work is officially done on this car. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I know I didn't take a ton of time and share with you guys every step of every part of this process here, but I'm gonna walk through it with you guys in great detail here in just a second. But yeah, it looks noticeably different. You're probably noticing it in paint here. I'll get to that in just a second. But first, start off with, we use those donor pieces to rebuild this lower window channel. We also use some 90-degree flange pieces here of 18 gauge to rebuild most of that rear window channel up on top as well. Now, I did have to order the clips and everything to fit the trim. We've got those on the way. It's like $35 freaking. Unbelievable. Couldn't believe that. But that's beside the point. But once those come in, we can then throw some it's actually 3M tape that goes around the entire opening of the window, and then we can put the rear glass back in it, put the trim back on it, and wrap up that entire job. But yeah, looks really good. Should be watertight with the exception. We've still got these holes here from the trim from the original vinyl top. We will plug these and yeah, hopefully not have any other water issues or moisture issues inside the car. Now, when I was looking at this rear deck filler piece here, guys, now, if you were to look around this car and try to point out what is the fake patina, you'd be able to spot it out. But I tell you what, if I'm driving by you or you just walk past the car, nobody's ever gonna notice it. I think it turned out really good, and I did it with Rust-Oleum paint that I got from Home Depot. So started off here with the red primer, used some gray, and then I found this green, moss green. It is so close to this faded green on this car, and I think that especially after the car sees a little bit more sun, sits outside, that's going to fade, and I think it's going to blend in just fine, and not many people will be able to notice that. Also hit it with some semi-gloss top coat here, just some clear coat over the top of all that, and yeah, I think it'll pass. I think it'll do the job. Now, the Bob Ross in me could not stop there. And so we did the trunk also, and here's what she turned out like. Now, some of you guys may be shaking your head with this, but to be honest with you, when I was sitting there thinking about this, if I pour 15'd or blacked out the trunk, the OCD inside of me, I'd have to do the entire car, and I don't want to do that. For what this car is, it's the Ratty Satty. I want it to look the part, and yeah, this will do the job just fine. And to get it to look like this, and also on the top, I hit it originally first with the red, then threw some gray over the top of that, and then I threw the green over everything else. And then when it was just about dry, I actually took a dry sponge and just wiped the entire thing and kind of made it look like that, made it look faded. And yeah, I think it looks just fine, guys. Once we get some things thrown in the back here, once it gets a little wear on it, again, I think it's going to blend in just fine. And what I'm most happy about is that you really cannot tell that this trunk was patched from the top. We've still got some work to do on the bottom side there. We'll address that when we go to put in the gas tank. But overall, very happy with all of that. Not only the outer perimeter, but also, if you remember, this was a two-piece trunk pan, and I hate that seam down the middle of it. So we butt welded that, we blended that out, body worked it, and it turned out really, really good. So, oops. There we go. So anyways, we got the trunk fitting relatively well. I guess we'll have to grease that latch there, but our gaps are really good around it. We did make some adjustments here to get this to lay a little bit flatter so it does fit better. But now, moving to the front of the car, if you remember, the very, very first thing we did is that we rebuilt our door hinges. So I got the doors fit up, and if you remember, when I opened the door previously, you remember how much this dropped, right? Well, now that I open it, it's perfectly flat. And it closes super easy, super good. And yeah, for 10 bucks, guys, and maybe 15, 20 minutes, it's well worth doing. You won't look like an idiot trying to slam your door in a parking lot, or your trunk for that matter. But yeah, doors turned out really good. Now, you know, kind of the star of the show in this video here is the S&W Roll Cage. I can't tell you guys how happy I am with the quality of the cage, the quality of the bends, the notches, everything. Well worth the money. Now there are cheaper kits out there, but you're gonna spend a lot more time and money trying to fit those kits up. And if you're like me, not the best at math, definitely not the best at angles and everything else and notching. So yeah, I will spend the extra money and make this thing look good. I tell you right now, the only part of this cage that looks bad are some of the shitty welds that I put in this thing. With it being the thicker wall thickness, you have to run a lot hotter to make sure you get good penetration all the way around. And so with that, you use, you know, much higher temperature as well as more wire. And yeah, I'll just say my best work is definitely not on some of these welds. But if you guys do see me at Matt's, you do see this at the car show, don't judge me too harshly by that. But I tell you what, this thing is absolutely solid as a freaking rock. And even just putting in like the first couple bars here, you could really feel the strength in the car. And man, it's killer, you guys. You know, made sure I put my angle gauge on these bars here to make sure that they're both the same on both sides. We also did the same thing here on the inside. And if you remember, that tunnel is actually a little bit closer to the passenger side. So it was a little bit tricky, had to do some trimming on the bottom. But again, the notches, everything is bang on. And if all I have to do is trim the bottom that welds to the flat plates, I'm in good shape. But yeah, well worth the money, guys. If you're thinking about caging your car, you want to improve the safety of your car, definitely check them out. So we've still got our Kirky racing seats to put in here. We've still got our harnesses to put in here. Those will probably be in the next episode because a few of those are due in the next couple days. But can't wait to get all that stuff mounted up there. And yeah, for the most part, that's pretty much it for the interior. We will be moving the shifter back depending on the seat placement here on the driver's side, just to make that more comfortable. And also, if you remember me saying I had to actually run it a little bit too far forward for my taste with having that bench seat in there, so it wasn't like sitting directly next to me, easy to shift. So what else is next? Well, with us having the metal work done on the car, it's time to start reassembly, and in a big way. So we've got to get our engine put together. I've got so many parts here at the house. We're gonna have to get another workbench, put it over here, lay everything out. And yeah, we've got a lot of work to do with that. As I mentioned earlier, kind of gave it away already, but we are working with QA1 on this build, and we're getting the full 4-link, full tubular, upper and lower control arms, coilovers, everything are coming in for this car. So should have that here in a few weeks as well. And then, yeah, new fuel system, new everything. This is a completely different car than what it was a few weeks ago. And one of you guys made fun of me the other day because you're like, oh, you said it was going to be your daily driver. Well, I do plan on driving the shit out of this car and driving it everywhere I possibly can once it's finished. So I will hold true to that during the spring and during the summer. But it's here in Utah, guys. We got like 24 inches of snow over the last couple days, so kind of snowed in over here. Gives me another reason, or another excuse rather, to be out here in the shop. So, but enough talking, guys. Thank you so much for holding out and waiting and being patient. You know, this actually took a better part of 2.5 weeks to get all the work done on this, but what a huge step in the right direction. And yeah, now we get to do some even funner stuff. So stay tuned, guys. I'll see y'all again real soon.